Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give it a few more minutes. We've got quite a few individuals registered for today's event, so we're just going to give it a couple of minutes. And then we'll get started. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's talk. Today's event is hosted by collaborating partners, Husky Innovate with the Pavlis Honors College, Career Services, and the Institute for Policy, Ethics, and Culture. I just realized I need to unmute my video. I'm Lisa Casper. I'm the program manager for Husky Innovate. Husky Innovate is Tech's Innovation and Entrepreneurship Resource Hub. Cody Kangas, the Director of Corporate Relations, and Erin Syth, the Institute Manager for the Institute of Policy, Ethics, and Culture, will be moderating today. And with that, I'll hand it over to Cody.
Thanks, Lisa. So, yeah, over the next hour-ish or so, we're excited to have all of you here and excited to welcome Jukka. This time we're basically going to be talking a little bit about IKEA and the growing budding relationship between IKEA and Michigan Tech. For those of you who aren't aware, we've been growing this basically dating back to April of 2021. And we've really been exploring various interconnectivity of opportunities to collaborate that impact faculty and especially our students. This has been a collaboration internally at Michigan Tech between IPEC, the College of Forest Resources and Environmental Science, Career Services, amongst others. Some of the opportunities that are going to be on the horizon with IKEA include potential co-ops for our students in Sweden. And with that, IKEA actually will be at our career fair on February 16th. So for any students that are here and that are interested, please make a point of signing up on Handshake and Career Fair Plus and hang out with IKEA. Additionally, want to give a shout out to Linnaeus University in Sweden, particularly their Department of Forestry and Wood Technology. We are exploring some research opportunities with them as well. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Erin to introduce Jukka.
Hello, everybody. I'm Erin Syth. I'm the Institute Manager for the Institute for Policy, Ethics, and Culture. And I'm introducing Jukka Vornanen, the Global Wood Supply Manager of IKEA of Sweden. Welcome, Jukka. We've been meeting for over a year, and Jukka's been a critical asset to building this relationship. Actually, it just doesn't include just IKEA and Michigan Tech, but IKEA has also introduced us to Linnaeus University. So we're building relationships with Linnaeus University in Sweden as well. Jukka has been critical to that work and really delightful to work with. Thank you, Jukka. And I'd also like to mention Ulf Johansson, who's the Global Wood Supply and Forestry Manager at IKEA as well. And he and Professor Sarah Green here at Tech actually initiated this relationship at the United Nations Conference of Parties, actually. So, and I'm just going to touch on a little bit of background on IKEA's interest areas, principally in wood recycling, wood modification, and wood upcycling. And there's there's much more, but those are some of the prominent ones. And just to give a little background, their work's really grounded in both IKEA's and Sweden's commitments to transitioning to a circular economy. They're pretty significant goals that the country has set. And that is defined, and I pulled this from a document off of that the Swedish government published in 2020, the transition to a society in which resources are used efficiently and toxin-free circular flows, replacing new materials. And so that, when you think about that, it just doesn't mean just wood and how we think about wood and how we imagine how to use wood, but it also means rethinking the supply chain or reimagining or rethinking the supply chain and reimagining glues and adhesives and foams, which are petroleum based, as well as decarbonizing transportation. So IKEA is not going to solve all those things or imagine all those things themselves, but it's really fascinating to think about that within a larger context. And so that said, I encourage everyone to put your questions in the chat and we will address those and have a conversation once you guys had a chance to introduce himself and IKEA. So thank you.
Good. Many thanks, Erin. Many thanks, Cody, Lisa. So such a great opportunity for being here and representing IKEA. Nice to meet you all. And Jukka is my name. I have a background in Finland where I was born, and in the past 7 years I've been living in Sweden. And my background is much on the wood and forestry part. So I'm first of all passionate forest owner myself, been fishing, hunting all my life more or less, hiking in the woods, and have a wood engineering education. And then in the past 20 years, I've been working in the wood and floor industry. Then on the development, sales and marketing functions until 2020, I think it was when I was contacted from IKEA to join then into IKEA team. And I didn't know actually IKEA that well at the time. It was, of course, I knew the brand. I knew how pretty much, I thought actually I knew how the company is working. And I was having opportunity then to touch base on the recruit phase and was actually surprised how well the values that are presented by IKEA are embedded in a recruiting process, starting from that. So basically first going through the values mindset of the employer and the company, how well that fits. And then based on that, going more into the technical skills. And it's really a kind of one proof point how well the values are embedded in the company and throughout basically everything that we do. So being here in this position then for approximately 1 year and 4 months, so fairly new. And I'm working in a part of organization called IKEA of Sweden. And that's a kind of core of IKEA. So what we are doing is developing the product range, mapping the customer expectations going forward, making sure that product is available. We are cooperating with our partners in developing the products. And my function specifically is something we call wood supply and forestry. So it's a specific team that is consisting of approximately 50 persons globally. And we are working in securing our wood is affordably sourced and sustainably sourced. So that is basically consisting of specialists that are spread across the world. They are really going in the value chain audits, making sure that we are matching the criteria that IKEA has been setting. And I'm leading in that part of organization. I'm leading the wood supply part. So basically connecting the forest resources into our supply chains. And about our supply chains, I will go more in details later on how we use wood. But that includes everything that IKEA is manufacturing ourselves. So we are approximately 10% give and take is manufactured by IKEA companies. And then the vast majority is manufactured by our suppliers or partners. So we have really strongly engaging with our partners in development. So, Erin, if you can confirm that you see the screen. So I thought that I could start from presenting quickly the company first. So let's see if it works.
Sure.
Maybe now you see that's
Yes.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So it all started for IKEA in 1943 when basically the IKEA story starts. It's a work of one man in the beginning that was starting his mail ordering company and then later on scaling that up in steps. And it's been evolving then. That's our reach has been growing year by year, especially now in the times of COVID. We have been also been enabling rather good growth globally. So this is where it started, in the village called Älmhult here in southern Sweden, where I'm based outside as well, outside of that small village. And it's been really becoming from very small into rather large globally over the past years. Our vision is rather simple. So we want to create a better everyday life for the many people. And that influence is actually everything that we do. That goes into the products that we develop, the ideas we are sharing, what materials are we using. And that is kind of steering much of the work that is done. And it's also a vision that is impacting and go through all our workers, which approximately 250,000 people working in the IKEA organizations globally. The business idea is very straightforward. So we are offering a wide range of well-designed, functional home furnishing products, and really with the intention to have it so low price that we can reach maximum amount of people, also the ones with the thin wallets. And all the products we are designing according to something we call democratic design. And I will walk you a little bit through that as well in this session, that what that stands for, how we are developing products within that, and how that impacts our material selections, to name one specific area. So our reach is global. We are dealing approximately 460 stores globally, and been growing significantly now also in time of COVID. We have been opening more these smaller studios in the bigger cities to make it accessible also for the people that are living inside the cities, rather than also in the suburbs where it used to be more common in earlier. Also, we have been very strongly activating now in the e-commerce that has been leveraging big part of our sales growth during the pandemic. So then what the democratic design is about, I will show you a quick video later on, but it's consisting of 5 different elements, all starting from sustainability, that we know that we are pretty large in global scale. And of course, we have a great opportunity to impact on the sustainability by our daily decisions. We have a very strong asset on Scandinavian design or form, how the products are designed, what materials are chosen, how the form shape is defined, and how the kind of they are fitting into our IKEA brand as well. Then function for sure is highly important, that each of the piece of furniture is matching its expectations from the consumer side. And we are really mastering that life at home, as we call it. So we know basically how the consumers are, what are their pains, and how we can contribute into that to make their everyday life easier. Then quality comes for sure with the sustainability as well. It's very hard to be sustainable if the product quality fails. So we have there the steps how we see the sustainability and the quality going hand in hand. And by making sure that we are matching also thanks to those to the circularity going forward. So product can be reused and also remanufactured. And then last but not least, the low price. So there is a more and more growing poverty also in the pandemic. And there is a great opportunity to impact also people with thinner wallets globally. That's where we are planning our growth as well. So we need to be affordable for the many people to be able to simply contribute to their well-being indoors. So democratic design is something that is been going for approximately 25 years as a terminology at IKEA. It's rather well known, and it is steering on product development. Of course, the weight of each of these segments is different from each product. But we are really encouraging all the design teams and product engineers to make sure that we have this specific weight of each, always covered in all the items. If sustainability is not affordable, it will not help on the global scale. So it needs to be something that can be brought also in affordable level. So we can support the people with thinner wallets to live in a sustainable way. And that also goes not only in the furniture, but also in the food or in the restaurant selection IKEA is servicing. There we are much moving from meat-based more into plant-based products as well, at affordable price. brand is rather well known. So it's a symbol that represents IKEA across the businesses. And we are fairly complex in organization. There is much of different kind of entities, and at least for newcomers like myself, it's one of the biggest challenges to actually join the company is to navigate through all these organizations, how decisions are done, where each of them are made, how the information flows are going, etc., etc. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we have globally. And it's also covered in one of our values, that is the simplicity, that we are intending to make really slim and straightforward processes and creating something that is non-complex. But still, due to the size, it's sometimes very difficult to navigate through our organization models. And how we are seen externally very often is not the part of organizations I'm representing, but more on the distribution part or on the retail part called Inka. That is one of our biggest franchises. Is all the stores are franchise based, and Inka is the biggest franchisee of IKEA. But anyway, operating under one brand, reaching millions of hearts and homes globally. Then very often we are referring to the many people, so we want to clarify what it actually stands for. So the many people, that is a huge group of people, first of all with big dreams that they want to, or they have a high ambition to make their life better, but also with the thin wallets. So it's basically all the people in this call, and really large bunch of different kind of people in socio-economic aspects as well. It's also engaging our customers, also potential buyers that are not yet our customers. We can impact a lot thanks to our co-workers, and especially people that are working with our suppliers, where we have extremely tight relations very often. So it's a very big group of people, and of course, with this big part of people or big group, we can create a movement. And that is very often what the people have in common, is very much sharing the same values that are going in. If you take example from affordability, so that is equally important to all the countries, especially for the sustainability, same thing applies. So we need to be able to make sure that everything we do is within the reach of the many people. Then looking for the value chain, so it is fairly complex. We talk about huge bunch of countries, and especially for the wood, the supply chains are very complex. There is many traders, there is many logistic solutions, shipping raw materials, shipping products globally, so much complexity to manage. But all in all, the part of our business, or where we are operating, is to optimizing the entire IKEA value chain. So very often we are starting all the way from forest production, how to make trees available, through harvesting, through primary processing in sawmills or plywood mills, to mention a few examples, and then going through our furniture manufacturing. And let's say optimizing everything in that value chain is definitely something that is very close to our hearts. And also understanding the people needs is definitely essential. So we basically are working very much inclusively, listening and learning globally. We have something called Life at Home, and you will find lots of links how we are interacting with these people to make sure that we actually understand their everyday problems as a starting point of the value chain, so we can kind of continue the work then to create and design items that are helping with those the challenges. Then, of course, the products need to be manufactured, and there is the continuous loop also in the improving, especially in the quality and efficiency. Then IKEA has been putting significant efforts on packaging and distribution models, how we can make the flat pack so easy to carry from the stores home, how to quickly build the furniture and share that benefit together with our customers, of course. And then last but not least, definitely inspiring and selling, where the digital is playing much important role. This year of 2022 is actually the first one where we don't have our analog catalog anymore in place, but it's all gone now in digital. So that is definitely the direction that is important to inspire the consumers, increase the product awareness as a selling tool as well. Then a little bit, a few glimpses of our organization form that is rather complex. So 1983 is the year when the IKEA concept was decided to be protected. And there was a different kind of models then in organization, how to kind of secure that in the best possible way. And the outcome of that was the organization model we are sitting in. So we have this IKEA systems that is basically having the franchise agreements for the franchisees. And these are the companies that you see on the markets in different geographies. So Inka is being the biggest franchisees, and that's 100% owned by Inter IKEA. So it's our kind of own franchisees in that sense. But there is many other ones globally as well. And then we are working on assignment basis. So we have the IKEA of Sweden. And this is basically part of organization that we are working on, making sure that we have the range and we have a supply to match that for our franchisees. Then the communication part, that is media agency, mainly creating marketing materials and many other interactions there. And then the supply, that is making the supply agreements with our franchisees. So this is the kind of simplified version of how we work. Then if we're moving a little bit for more forward for how we are using wood. So there is so much things. The famous quote from our founder Ingvar was that "Det mesta ännu ogjort, underbar framtid." So translating that in English is that most things are remaining still to be done. Glorious future. And that's a bit that what is bringing us also into this constellation, that we need future talents with a growing number. We have a growing need of highly skilled workers that are sharing the same values as IKEA does. And of course, there we are interacting with quite a many different stakeholders. Linné University one, Michigan Tech as another one. And in this, we are basically activating them to make sure that we are kind of building this bridge of industrial world, or let's say enterprises, and then universities. Really much appreciated to have these kind of tools and platforms where we can kind of connect with the future talents and potentially and hopefully joining an organization in some of the geographics we are active. I will then move a little bit into showing that where we are using our wood. And before that, actually, I would like to share as a reminder our values, that how IKEA is building, and because this is really something that flows across our processes and functions. So we are a group of doers that are really enjoying the work together. And now, especially in times of COVID, and you can imagine my pain of coming as a COVID times in the new organization and just meeting people digitally. So it might be that I don't have the correct perception from togetherness, but we are still interacting a lot. So it's definitely an organization that is bonded together in a very accurate manner. And we are very informal, very unhierarchic. So really kind of group of doers and jointly coming to decisions very often. We have a very high ambition on caring for the people and planet, how we are treating with our suppliers. We have been creating a huge positive impact by our minimum standard of IWay. So it's a kind of code of conduct that is defined the minimum level in our supply chains. Also very cost conscious. We want to reach 3 billion people. And of course, we need to be very conscious on the cost that we are having the products which are affordable. And part of that comes also through the simplicity. So simplifying things, not creating these big processes, but having rather hands-on attitude and very straightforward, simplified processes. We have been renewing and improving a lot over the past years. And still that remains as one of the great opportunities to make sure that we are having that momentum going forward, where we are renewing ourselves and finding new ways to work. And in every kind of unsurprising moment, like now in the pandemic, all of those challenges that IKEA has been facing in the past has been making us actually much stronger. And of course, now it's very early to conclude, but also in the COVID, there has been so much of innovation coming from IKEA teams. We have been really strongly encouraging and moving and growing on digital, etc. So there is lots of things which are cooking and which will definitely make us much stronger once we are out of the pandemic. And that's always we need to do with the meaning. So we want to do things much different what our competitors are doing. but there always need to be purpose why we do that. And when it comes to management style, as said earlier, that we are very hands-on people all in all. And of course, leading by example is something that is very important. So nothing is stronger than a good example, and that we are creating very often by showing example for our organizations that how they should or could do things, just inspiring and being there available. And one strong part is giving and taking responsibility within the teams. So I said earlier that very often decisions are done by quite a many people inside the organization. And it's very typical at IKEA that you are kind of jumping on into completely different kind of assignment that your skills and education are based on. So very often we are really mobile and let's say going into different kind of assignments, either full-time or part-time dedicated, and to make sure that we are kind of taking more responsibility. And I don't think it's been never the case that if someone is asking to take on additional assignments, that would be kind of stopped from IKEA side. So really, let's say, encouraging to make sure that we are also taking the responsibility our own and not expecting managers to kind of push it down. Then moving more for our wood use. Just exploring the slides right now, just a second. Let's see. I think it is this one here. So we are one of the largest users of wood in different forms globally. So approximately 1%, and it's not the full reality, but if you are Googling that, you will find that there is approximately 1% of wood globally that is ending up on IKEA supply chains. And that is something that is rather straightforward measurement. So of course, within that 1%, there is a huge share of byproduct flows and also post-consumer wood. So we are working on having that kind of updated figuring going forward. And also something that's we are working on is the transparency. So we expect consumers increasing also the continuing trend of having full transparency on where companies are sourcing their raw materials, like wood in our case. So in a few coming months, we will be going out transparently into our sourcings where we are sourcing in different countries. So basically these figures that I'm sharing right now with you as well. So all in all, that 1% is then split differently in the geography. So we have a huge weight of, if you look for the country of wood origin, Poland is representing approximately 1/4. So it's a big share of our wood sourcing, our supplier setups, and of course, our development as well. And then the second quarter is coming from 3 countries, Belarus, Russia, and Sweden. So they are all in all approximately another quarter of our global consumption. Germany, China, and let's say the Baltics, Romania, Italy, that is another quarter. And then the rest is scattered with much smaller countries, but really hugely weighted in, especially in the central eastern part of Europe. And one of the main reasons why we are such strong in Poland is that that's been the country where IKEA went first in, somewhere in the 60s, 70s. There was a big education on transferring this knowledge and education for Polish manufacturing. There has been extremely successful partners that has been growing together with us, and that going forward as well. So there is a big part of our sourcing is coming from Poland. Then if we are looking for what kind of materials are we using, so board-based materials, MDF, HDF, OSB, particle board, it's more than half. So it's a lot of flat pack items made of these materials. And here we see a great opportunity also increasing our share of recycled wood going forward. Then solid wood is approximately 1/4 of our wood consumption. And there is one topic that we are looking how to make potentially use the recycled fiber base to recreate solid wood. There is some technologies on the market. For sure, huge opportunity going forward, not only from a product point of view, but also from carbon point of view. That's could extend the product life cycle and having the CO2 then committed much longer than it might be otherwise. Then the rest is scattered with different kind of veneers, plywoods, pulp-based material, cardboard, etc. Lots of different applications therein. And this is also steering rather well that what happens in the board material is definitely steering our development as well. And there is a few important topics that we are working on. Recycled wood, as mentioned, is one of them. The other one is the bio-based adhesives. How to make the industry moving. There are solutions available on that, but it's not full-scale industries yet. So we need to, together with suppliers and partners, keep on creating this movement of moving more towards the bio-based adhesives in board manufacturing. And then for the recycled wood consumption, I will go a little bit more details soon. Then if you look for the recycled share, so in the board materials today, we are somewhere approximately 19% how much is made of recycled wood. And that number we expect to go strongly up in coming years. On the paper, it's rather optimized. It's approximately 72%, still for sure room to improve. But it means also there need to be virgin fibers put into the system to make it success and match the performances that it needed for a certain type of materials. And if you look for the trends here, so in the board materials, we are definitely on the increasing trend already. And this is something that we expect to continue. Building also on the countries, if you look on the countries, so 4% of the wood is coming from Italy. That is one of those countries where there is no forestry, not large-scale forestry available. But they have been really extremely successful to recycle their wood waste. And I think it's a very inspiring example for the other countries to kind of make sure that that fiber stock is used in a good way and connected to products where the lifetime can be much longer rather than burning those into energy or to paper. Then looking for a few challenges ahead. So what are the kind of main things or main challenges that we see from, let's say, wood supply point of view? We are working quite intensively in the market intelligence, scanning different types of commodity markets from paper, plywood, logs, etc. globally. And especially in the past 2 years' time has been a rather big challenge on availability side on some capacities. If you take laminated veneer lumber as one example, where basically all the mills are full, manufacturing then for the construction. And while we have also growing need of LVL in our products, we have been moving from solid wood to engineered wood. And we need to put some market efforts then to increase this capacity and impact so that we have this availability secured for those type of materials. Those are one kind of projects that part of organization that I'm working on is doing. So we are seeing how we can scale up the global LVL capacity to make sure that we have the availability secured. Then basically lack of capacity is impacting on some materials. There is simply not enough capacity, or if there is capacity, it's far from where we have the needs or where we have our supplier base. So that's one topic. Recycled wood is a kind of underused opportunity globally, not only in IKEA, but elsewhere as well. There is many industries looking after for that right now as the consequence of prices that's been increasing over the past 16, 18 months. And still so much to be done in the recycled wood, educating consumers as first point, but also working together with governments to make sure that the recycling infrastructure is increasing its availability and reach, to make sure that simply more fibers are entered into the system instead of burning that into land or ending up on landfill. I said earlier that logistics are rather challenging for us. We are working on the global supply chains. And it's been a rather big challenge. So far, we have been managing that pretty well. But for sure, there is a big part of logistics that are impacting our supply chains. And of course, that goes hand in hand with the climate impact. How can we move from these global supply chains more into regional supply, close to the destination where we plan to sell these items as well? Not always easy, but definitely something we are looking into. Then especially in Europe, it's been, and of course globally as well, there has been lots of regulations that are changing the market's movements. So material flows has been changing, taking an example from China and some Baltic countries, which has been having some changes in the past weeks, etc. So there is lots of regulations that are impacting. Sometimes you can prepare for those, but not always. There has also been rather quick changes that we need to cope with. Then demand is not only high for IKEA, so we have been celebrating pretty good sales. in the last year of pandemic was actually our highest in sales. So demand for sure is high and is keeping high as well. But also same goes for construction, where we are kind of competing with much of the raw materials. Then we have if we take some of the plywood or some of the veneers that are used in our products, we have a pretty high dependency on some countries or some wood species or some supply chains. So how can we make sure that we are kind of finding new solutions to match these critical wood species or critical supplies? And that's something that we are definitely working on. And then we are talking about rather conservative type of business. There is a very slow movement in the digitalization. When we talk about small scale sawmills in Vietnam, or we talk about private sawmills in Poland or so, there is a lot to improve. And definitely that digitalization would help us on transparency, on affordability, on efficiency, optimizing supply chains much stronger than today. There is many options there that we can kind of leverage that. Prices, I said earlier, so that's been impacting a lot. And the part of the organization that's we are sitting is called purchase development. And of course, that is one of our ambitions, is to make sure that we are year on year decreasing our cost so we can pass that decrease into the customers as well, to make sure that we are remaining affordable. And that is definitely one of the challenges now when the prices of wood-based materials and of course everything else has been pretty high. And then still there is a lot of opportunities in process efficiency and yield. So there is still lots of bio-based materials that are used for the energy, while it could be used for more long-term materials like furniture, like buildings, etc. And also there is much of conversion in supply chains that are not mapped. And that means as well, if it's not mapped, it's very hard to optimize it either. So that's something we are working on, how to make sure that we are kind of mapping our supply chains with the conversion factors from cubic meters to square meters, and identify those gaps that we can then leverage. That is building on low prices. Here are the few examples of what are the kind of topics we are working on. And for the co-ops, we have drafted a couple of thoughts and ideas that we will present then. Was it 16th of February, if I recall right? So there is some parts that are connected to these main challenges. And of course, recycling is a big part of our future material use, not only on affordability parts, but especially on how we can make sure that we are collecting material, we are putting that in the products where the carbon is then committed for another 20, 30 years going forward. And the other one is the engineered wood, where we simply want to make bigger impacts of our wood use. So how we can get more efficiency from 1 cubic meter of wood. And that means that there is lots of solutions where we are moving towards engineered wood. So rather than using solid wood, we use that in the different material types, we're basically combining different materials that are fitting for purpose. Very often particle board as a carrier, and then it could be something that is foiled or veneered or otherwise treated. And also we have some opportunities in digitalization, what can be brought in by printing, as an example. That's still, that has a game changer, that has been changed in many industries, like ceramic tiles is one of them examples. And how that could be building on different kind of interior materials, etc. So there is lots on the technology side as well that is cooking going forward. Then I thought to share a quick video with you on coming back to the first starting from the democratic design. So I hope I will be able to get the sound on into the video as well. Is there something I should click here on Zoom to make the sounds activated, or does it follow usually automatically? Do you know, Erin?
I do not. I do not know, actually.
I can help with that. So when you share your screen, when you click to share, there's a button at the bottom on the left, a small button that says share sound. And if you click that, we should be able to hear it.
Yeah, let's see if this one works. And then let's check it up.
So I think we're there.
And this is basically, the video I'm sharing is coming from something that is called IKEA Museum. So the first IKEA store in Älmhult has been converted to IKEA Museum. They have been doing this digital journey as well, so you can access the dates are very strongly online. So if you are more interested, you will have great links to kind of follow the story and see some testimonials as well. But let's see if the sound works here.
If you're watching this video, and you are, you probably know what design is. And you certainly know what democratic means. But what is democratic design?
All right, let's start with a biggie. What is democratic design?
So democratic design to me is a couple of things actually. First of all, it's the will to reach the majority of people with great ideas. I mean, why do you do design that don't try to reach a lot of people? I don't really see why to do the efforts, to be honest. Secondly, within IKEA, it actually became like a language around how to product develop. So democratic design has 5 pillars. It's about form, it's about function, it's about sustainability, quality, and everything at a low price then to make it accessible to people. And those 5 pillars actually made it possible for everyone, no matter what kind of education, to talk about products and what is a good product and what is not a good product. So then democratic design is like a language within IKEA around design.
Yes, making beautiful things of high quality, all at a low price, has always been at the very heart of what IKEA does. But after the turbulent 80s, IKEA needed to re-establish its core ideals.
The way of working with design as a democratic thing, I think that was part of the IKEA idea from the very beginning. But just that sentence to say democratic design, that was like invented like in 1995 within IKEA. Before that, it wasn't there.
Stina Holmberg was part of the group working with this. So, Stina, who came up with the phrase democratic design?
I've been thinking about this and I don't remember. I think we were like in a... it was just us and we were working so intensely with this and it was scribbles and then it sort of turned out and then it just flew. We just liked it. And I think also what democratic design does is explaining and describing something that IKEA or Ingvar Kamprad back in the 50s already said, but in another words, because he's been doing democratic design, or IKEA has been doing democratic design before 1995.
Form, function, and a low price. Based on good old IKEA ideas, that was the formula for democratic design. Presented as a book at the Milan Furniture Fair along with its proof point, the first PS collection. But what is democratic design? A roadmap for product developers or a communicative tool? In true IKEA style, it is, of course, both.
From the 80s to early 90s, it was like a task for the range to change. But then we saw that, okay, we have changed the range, but still people don't see that we have changed it and, we don't get the effect that we wanted. Then it became like a communicative task as well.
In the late 2000s, form, function, and low price got some good company when quality and sustainability were added, completing the 5 pillars of democratic design.
When we talk about quality, it's about long-lasting things that age in a beautiful way. That was like the new definition about quality. And of course, if you have long-lasting things that age in a beautiful way, you're more prone to keep them. That makes those products more sustainable. But sustainability could be so much more. It could be also less wasteful behaviors in product development, for instance, and in production. And if you look upon IKEA, I would say that IKEA has been super sustainable from the very beginning, because it's been all about, getting less waste, because less waste means better prices. So I think the eureka moment when it comes to sustainability within IKEA was that when everybody also understood that it's so connected to our ways of making low prices. So the better we are at, being efficient, the more sustainable we will be as well. So those go hand in hand. Sustainability is economy. And I think that's important to understand.
In conclusion, this is IKEA's not-so-secret formula. Form, function, quality, sustainability, and a low price. Get all 5 exactly right, and you end up with the perfect IKEA product.
So that opened a bit of the democratic design, how that works. And within IKEA, wood is approximately 60% of our material consumption. It's a huge part of what we do globally. And that's why we are such focused on that as well. I thought to share another one where you also meet Ulf Johansson, who Erin mentioned earlier in this call as well. And Ulf is explaining here our forest positive agenda for 2030, where this recycled wood is becoming a little bit more concrete. I've been speaking also about it quite a lot here. So he will share these ambitions that we have going forward and how we reach this by 2030.
Wood is one of the main materials that IKEA uses, and it plays a major role in our commitment to becoming climate positive. Wood is beautiful, it's durable and sustainable, provided that it is responsibly sourced. For many years, IKEA has been committed to using our size and global reach to drive responsible forest management practices, both for our own wood use and for the wider forestry sector. Today, more than 98% of wood used for IKEA products are FSC certified or recycled. Earlier this year, the IKEA Forest Positive Agenda for 2030 was announced, where we are ramping up our work to further enhance biodiversity, mitigate climate change, and support the rights and the needs of people who depend on forests across wood supply chains. As a global home furnishing brand, we will continue to drive innovations to use wood resources in even smarter ways, and hopefully inspire others to do the same. By 2030, we will secure that at least 1/3 of the IKEA wood range will be made from recycled wood. Our goal is that 80% of the raw material that goes into our particle board will be recycled, setting a strong challenge for all IKEA partners. Where we have the greatest impact to mitigate our climate footprint, enhance biodiversity and support human rights is through our own responsible sourcing practices, and also by prolonging the life of products and materials. We will do this through a highly strategic and data-led approach. Nowhere is this more important than in our work to remove and store carbon within the IKEA value chain, including through our products. Here our focus is on achieving the highest possible removal and storage effect. Crucial in this work is the establishment of global accounting standards for calculating the removing and storing carbon effect in a science-based way. Inter-IKEA Group is contributing to this work by co-funding and engaging in the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. In addition to securing that we apply correct accounting measures to our own supply chain, we also have a development agenda aimed at generating insights and best practices that can have relevance beyond IKEA. In connection with COP25, Inter-IKEA Group announced the decision to invest 100 million euros to remove carbon from the atmosphere through reforestation, restoration of degraded forest, and better forest management practices. Over time, an actively managed forest has the capacity to remove more carbon than those that are passively managed. With our program focusing on removing and storing carbon, we have a great opportunity to improve land use in our sourcing regions and create value beyond the IKEA business. Through two clearly defined objectives, creating a tailored evaluation model and having a bottom-up approach for capturing the best land use development opportunities, we are developing our capabilities to have a strong impact on sustainable land use across the world. However, to best mitigate climate change and make the greatest contribution to biodiversity and local livelihoods, we see the need for the global science community to come together and help companies to quantify and verify carbon savings from different forest management practices. The work is not over. IKEA remains committed to taking the lead and helping to make responsible forest management the norm across the world. And I can assure you, we will be transparent about our learnings and our progress.
And then I would like to finish on one more slide here. What Ulf mentioned as well is that we are trying innovation to use wood in smarter ways. Laminated veneer lumber is one of the applications that we are scaling up the volumes as we speak. So there is much more cooking than that. But recycled wood, as mentioned, that is one of these ideas that is cooking in large degree. We are in industrial size scaling up the volumes. And we will reach this 1/3 by 2030, just like we did with our 2020 ambition as well, to be 100% FSC or recycled. And then the second one is around investing on innovations on the new wood-based applications, like in packaging, like in other applications where we are basically using some really new scale technologies to reduce our dependency on the virgin fossil-based materials, like plastic in packaging is one example. And then, as said earlier, that developing the technological approach to increase the material efficiency. So from 1 cubic meter of trees, how we get more customer benefits out. Can we go down in dimension if we use plywood? Can we go down in veneer thicknesses by using new technologies, etc., etc. So many thanks for joining. I will stop sharing right now, and I think there was a Q&A then next on the agenda. Is that right, Erin?
Yes, that's correct. So if anyone has any questions that they'd like to just speak up right now, you can go ahead. It's an opportunity just to have a little chat here. Currently are not any questions in the chat, but feel free. We'll take a moment and feel free to put those in or raise your hand or just turn your camera on and ask Jukka.
And while you're thinking the questions, I can just have a few words about, let's say, the place or let's say the surroundings where we are working on. So we have a pretty big office complex where we are based with the full dedicated labs on testing different kind of things. I think in that unit, we are something like 2,000 people working on from 50, 60 different nationalities. And IKEA has been voted several times in a row the best place to work in Sweden. And it's a really impressive surroundings that we are having in Älmhult. Älmhult is a small city, but there is a lot to explore for sure.
It looks like there is a question about, will IKEA be at the virtual career fair? Gosh, I didn't even know there were all these fairs. So you will certainly be at the February 16th career fair. There's also the Tech Forestry career fair. We haven't discussed that, but we can. So, but yes, you will be at the February 16th, the career fair, most certainly. So, other questions?
I'll throw one out there. So Jukka, in the spirit of innovation, this is the Husky Innovates Innovation Week here on Tech's campus. So can you tell us a little bit more about how innovation is enabled and encouraged at IKEA? You talked about the renewing and improving being a part of that process.
So I would say on that, we have, of course, our own innovation teams that are working on it. Pretty much that is one way of working, but actually out of all the innovation, it not always, but very often happens on actually where the action is. So basically meaning the floors of our partners, suppliers, manufacturers, where there is so much of great thoughts. They know the processes inside out, they know it really well. And that is very often where the innovation or the small ideas are coming in. And then, of course, the process how to get the end result is different. Very often we are co-financing those in large degree. But I would say all the thoughts and innovation is very often coming from that. And of course, having that practical word and then combining those ideas and thoughts with the university, I think that's where the kind of 1 + 1 will be suddenly 3. And I think that's where we can win to have this kind of hand-on knowledge to combine with the academic knowledge. I'm not sure if that answered to your question, Cody.
Yes, yes, it does.
We have another question here, Jukka. Does IKEA utilize much CLT or cross-laminated timber?
Today, I mean, if we take CLT as a kind of construction component where basically it's used as a beams or let's say bearing application, in that side of big dimensions, we don't use, of course, outside our stores and manufacturing entities. But I mean, using the CLT in a more small scale, having kind of different ways to saw planks, glue them together, to have the same kind of functionalities and performance as CLT has on the construction, that we are definitely doing. It's not the big, but there is some projects that are cooking, rather innovative projects there to kind of process the wood in a completely different way to minimize the impact from knots and other imperfections on the material. So that is definitely something we are working on. But still, I would say it's very small scale if you compare to use of laminated veneer lumber, where of course the opportunities are then much wider in sofas or in other applications where you need to have this kind of stiffness combined with low dimensions and having good homogenic mechanical properties. But I think it's a very good question and definitely something that's in the wider scope. If we take the engineered wood, that where it falls into, it's definitely something that we are looking into. So how to kind of use more quick growing species where the functionalities are not on the same level as in the old spruce or pine that has been growing 100 years plus. So how to make sure that we can use these quick growing species, and thanks to the engineered wood, we can kind of process that together to increase the performance into the level where it's needed.
Another question came to me from someone in the audience. How does the proliferation of e-commerce impact IKEA's supply chain and your model, given maybe it's not so much coming from the traditional stores now?
E-commerce definitely has been changing a lot. We have been haven't been cracking that code very well before the pandemic. So our competitors has been much more active on that field. But now in the pandemic has been boosting and we have been really improving that moving forward. So that's been really leveraging to a big part of our growth. Then how much that impacts our supply chains, for sure in some degree, but with those results are not yet something that is kind of on the marketplace. We are looking at different kind of logistic solutions, how to leverage this last mile deliveries, what technologies are cooking there with ATVs or other solutions. So there is a lot cooking, and we have some pilots also globally going on. But there is not kind of big scale solutions that are visible as we speak.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I had a question, if I could jump in.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just had a question about students or recent grads just looking to get involved or possibly work with IKEA. Just if you could, some recommendations or just elaborate on
that. Sorry, was the question about the co-op or?
Oh, yes, just about a co-op or, yeah.
Yes. So basically we have two projects that we are looking for gold from Michigan Tech. And those will be presented then on 16th of February. And of course, we are looking into what kind of, terms in terms of logistics support or apartment or monetary or so. So we are looking into that as we speak. And but the location then for those 1 or 2 co-ops would be then in Sweden, in our headquarters in Älmhult. So that would be the kind of physical location where the work should be carried out. And there is basically one of the projects is more on the engineered wood part where we are looking more into kind of building supply chains to match veneered or laminated veneer constructions, then integrated from forests. While the other one is then looking a little bit more on the trying technologies and improvements on that precisely then in Vietnam and in rubber wood. So there is kind of two different kind of projects that we are looking into. But more in details, we'll go then in 16th of February in those two.
Great, thank you.
Victoria, you could feel free to email. You have my email address too. So if you need more information or need to connect with somebody, you can feel free to email me.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, we are at 11:30 our time, which Jukka, what time is it for you?
Now it's 5:30.
5:05, great. Well, Jukka, thank you so much for taking the time and speak with us and to share more about IKEA and to really tell more even about our partnership here on the horizon. For the audience that's still here, today's event is part of Innovation Week. So check out the rest of this week's lineup. Most of the events are virtual, and the lineup is going to be for the rest of the week in the chat. I think Lisa just put it in. So go ahead and check that out. And for any students interested, one more time, you can mention it. They will be at the career fair on February 16th. They will have a profile up on Handshake and Career Fair Plus shortly. So with that, Jukka, thank you again so much, and we'll be in touch again soon.
Big thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks, Jukka.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.